Welcome to HFY Stories. If you're ready for jaw-dropping stories and a universe full of excitement, hit that subscribe button like it's the big red button in a space opera. Give us a like if you're feeling that interstellar vibe and comment below to join the conversation. We want to hear from you. Yes, you, the spacefarer with a great story idea or just a fan of epic human victories. The Arrival. The Galactic Academy of Sciences was a melting pot of the brightest minds from all corners of the known universe. Located on the floating city of Xyrus in the Orion Nebula, it was home to species with intellects as vast as the stars themselves. Among them was Liara, a prodigious Zilithian student known for her unparalleled problem-solving skills and almost preternatural intuition. Phalithians, with their iridescent blue skin, multiple limbs, and heightened sensory perception, were considered one of the most advanced species in the galaxy. Lyra was no exception. She was the top of her class, excelling in everything from quantum mechanics to neural mapping. However, something about this academic year was different. For the first time, the Academy had admitted a human student. Humans were a relatively new species in the galactic community, known more for their resilience and adaptability than for their scientific prowess. The decision to admit a human into the prestigious academy was met with skepticism and quiet scorn. Most students saw it as a political move to placate the ever-growing influence of humanity in the galactic councils. The human in question was Ethan Carter, a seemingly ordinary young man from Earth. He was average in height, with unremarkable brown hair and a calm demeanor that seemed out of place amidst the more exotic and vibrant species of the Academy. Despite the subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, whispers and glances, Ethan carried himself with quiet confidence. Liara had been curious about Ethan. His presence disrupted the harmonious rhythm of the Academy, and she couldn't help but wonder why the humans had chosen to send him. On the first day of advanced theoretical constructs, Liara found herself seated next to Ethan, much to her irritation. "Hi, I'm Ethan," he said with a friendly smile, extending a hand towards her. Lyra looked at his hand, puzzled by the human gesture, before giving him a polite nod. "Liara," she responded, her voice cool and detached. Their instructor, a towering Calthorian with multiple eyes that moved independently of one another, began the lecture by presenting a complex, multi-dimensional equation. It was a problem that had stumped the brightest minds in the galaxy for decades. The challenge was to find the hidden pattern within the equation that would unlock new dimensions of energy. The room fell silent as students began furiously scribbling on their holographic pads, their minds racing to solve the enigma. Lara's multiple limbs worked in perfect harmony, her advanced brain processing information at an extraordinary speed. She was confident she would be the first to solve it. Ethan, on the other hand, sat quietly, his eyes scanning the equation. His demeanor didn't seem to reflect the urgency of the task at hand. Lara couldn't help but glance at him, wondering if he was in over his head. Minutes ticked by, and some of the other students began to show signs of frustration. The equation was proving to be as challenging as its reputation suggested. Then something unexpected happened. Ethan raised his hand. The instructor paused, all of his eyes focusing on the human. "Yes, Ethan, do you have a question?" the Calthorian asked, his tone dripping with skepticism. Ethan shook his head. "No, sir. I think I've figured it out." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the room. Laura turned to Ethan, her eyes narrowing. There was no way a human, especially one who appeared so unremarkable, could have solved the equation this quickly. The instructor motioned for Ethan to approach the front of the class. Ethan stood up and walked to the center, where he began manipulating the holographic projection of the equation with surprising ease. As he explained his reasoning, the once confusing equation began to unfold like a simple puzzle. Ethan's approach was unorthodox, relying on intuition and lateral thinking rather than raw computation. When he finished, the room was silent. The instructor examined Ethan's work, his multiple eyes blinking in astonishment. Remarkable, he finally said, his voice tinged with awe. This solution, it's ingenious. I've never seen anything like it. Liara was stunned. She had been so sure of her intellectual superiority, yet this human had solved the problem she hadn't even fully grasped. A mixture of emotions surged through her: confusion, frustration, and a begrudging sense of respect. As Ethan returned to his seat, Liara couldn't help but ask, "How did you do that?" Ethan smiled, his expression warm but enigmatic. "Sometimes the answer isn't in what you see, but in what you feel," he replied, leaving Liara even more perplexed. That was the beginning of a curious bond between the two. Despite their differences, Liara couldn't deny that Ethan was more than he appeared. And as the days turned into weeks, she found herself drawn to the mystery that was the human boy who had shocked the entire academy. The secret. After Ethan's remarkable demonstration of his problem-solving skills, the atmosphere at the Galactic Academy shifted. Whispers of admiration and disbelief followed him wherever he went, and even the most prestigious students began to see him in a new light. For Liara, the incident had sparked a curiosity she couldn't shake. She found herself increasingly intrigued by Ethan. Despite her initial annoyance, she couldn't help but notice his unique approach to challenges. It was as if he saw things differently, not just through his eyes, but through a perspective she hadn't encountered before. One evening, as Liara was studying alone in the library, a vast chamber filled with floating holographic texts and shimmering data streams, she noticed Ethan sitting at a nearby terminal. He was engrossed in a simulation, his face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the screen. Curious, Liara decided to approach him. "Working on something interesting?" she asked, trying to sound casual as she hovered over his shoulder. Ethan looked up, a hint of surprise in his eyes. "Oh, hey, Liara. Just trying to crack a few more problems. This simulation is supposed to predict energy fluctuations in interstellar fields, but it's proving tricky." Liara's eyes lit up with interest. "I studied energy fields extensively. Maybe I could help." Ethan hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Sure, if you don't mind." As they worked together, Liara was surprised at how well they complemented each other. Ethan's intuitive approach blended seamlessly with Liara's analytical skills. They made significant progress on the simulation, and for the first time, Liara began to see Ethan as more than just a human anomaly. However, as the hours passed, Ethan's demeanor shifted. He seemed distracted, his focus occasionally drifting away from the simulation. Liara noticed the change and decided to confront him. "Something on your mind?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "It's just, I've been working on something else. A personal project, I guess, but I'm having trouble figuring it out." Liara raised an eyebrow. "Personal project?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah, it's a bit unconventional. I've been trying to understand a particular anomaly I observed in the data we've been analyzing. It's not something we covered in class, but I think it might be important." Liara's curiosity was piqued. "What kind of anomaly?" Ethan hesitated before pulling up a series of encrypted data logs on his terminal. "I've been tracking unusual energy patterns that don't align with any known theories. They seem random at first glance, but I believe there's a deeper connection. I just can't make sense of it." Liara examined the data closely. The patterns were indeed unusual, but there was something familiar about them. She frowned, deep in thought. "These patterns, they resemble some ancient Silithian equations I've seen before. They were believed to be theoretical, but no one's ever proven them." Ethan's eyes widened. "Seriously, that's incredible. Do you think they could be related?" Liara nodded slowly. "It's possible. But why would they appear in your data?" "Silithian equations are ancient and rarely studied." Ethan shrugged. "I don't know. But if there's a connection, it could be groundbreaking. We might be on the verge of discovering something new. The two of them continued to work late into the night, their collaboration growing more intense as they unraveled the mystery together. As they dug deeper, they uncovered a pattern that hinted at a hidden force influencing the energy fields in ways they hadn't anticipated. Their breakthrough was interrupted by a sudden alarm that blared through the Academy's speakers. The lights flickered, and a message appeared on all terminals. Security breach detected in Sector 7. All students and staff, please proceed to the nearest evacuation points immediately. Liara and Ethan exchanged worried glances. What's going on? Ethan asked, his voice tense. I don't know, Liara replied, but we need to find out. They hurriedly left the library, navigating through the dimly lit corridors of the Academy. The sense of urgency heightened their adrenaline, and Liara couldn't help but notice how Ethan's presence seemed to calm her, even in the midst of chaos. As they reached Sector 7, they discovered that the security breach was a diversion. The real threat was something far more sinister. A rogue faction had infiltrated the Academy with plans to steal classified research data. Liara and Ethan, using their combined skills, managed to thwart the immediate threat, but the incident raised more questions than answers. The Academy was on high alert, and the once safe environment now felt fraught with danger. In the aftermath, Liara and Ethan found themselves standing together, their faces illuminated by the faint glow of emergency lights. The gravity of their situation sank in, and for the first time, Liara felt a genuine connection to Ethan, a shared sense of purpose and a bond forged in the fires of adversity. Thank you for helping me, Ethan said quietly, his gaze meeting hers. Liara nodded, her expression softened. No, thank you. I wouldn't have figured this out without you. As they walked away from the chaos, a new understanding passed between them. They were no longer just classmates. They were partners in unraveling a mystery that threatened the safety of the Academy and beyond. Shadows and secrets. After the security breach, the Galactic Academy of Sciences was under intense scrutiny. The once ordinary corridors now felt more like a labyrinth of secrets, each shadow hiding potential danger. Liara and Ethan were caught in the eye of the storm, their lives intertwining in ways they hadn't anticipated. The next day, the Academy's administration called for an emergency assembly. The students were gathered in the central auditorium, a grand hall with walls of shimmering crystal and a vaulted ceiling that seemed to stretch into infinity. The atmosphere was tense as the head of security, a stern-looking Kolthorian named Vrax, addressed the assembly. We have identified the culprits behind the security breach, Vrax began, his voice echoing through the hall. They were a rogue faction known as the Valkyrie. Their motives remain unclear, but they were after classified research. We believe they may attempt further incursions. A murmur of concern rippled through the audience. The Valkyrie were a notorious group known for their radical views and criminal activities. Their interest in the Academy's research was alarming, especially given the recent breakthroughs in energy fields and dimensional studies. Liara and Ethan exchanged worried glances. The recent threat had made them more aware of the stakes involved, and the danger was far from over. After the assembly, they decided to continue their investigation into the anomaly Ethan had discovered. They needed to understand if it was connected to the Valkyrie's intrusion. The duo returned to the library, which had been partially secured but was still accessible. As they reviewed their findings, they stumbled upon a hidden compartment in one of the ancient Silithian texts. It contained encrypted files that hinted at an advanced energy technology, something far beyond current scientific knowledge. This must be what the Valkyrie were after, Ethan speculated. But why would they want this specific technology? Liara's eyes narrowed. The patterns we saw in the simulation could be a clue. If this technology has been hidden for so long, it must be significant. The Valkyrie's interest might be more than just theft. They could be planning something much larger. As they dug deeper, they discovered that the encrypted files contained references to a dimensional nexus, a theoretical construct that could potentially manipulate space-time itself. It was a technology of immense power, capable of creating wormholes or even altering the fabric of reality. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the library's door slammed shut. Lyra and Ethan were trapped. The emergency lockdown systems had been activated, and they were no longer alone. The tension in the room escalated as they heard footsteps approaching. A shadowy figure appeared at the edge of the library, clad in a dark, flowing cloak. The figure's presence exuded a palpable menace, and the air seemed to crackle with an unseen force. Lyra and Ethan exchanged apprehensive glances. The figure was definitely not a part of the Academy's security. "Who's there?" Lyra called out, her voice steady despite her growing anxiety. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a face obscured by a metallic mask. "You've been meddling in things beyond your comprehension." The figure's voice was distorted, yet eerily familiar. "The Nexus is not for your kind to understand." Ethan tensed, his hand subtly moving towards a hidden device he always carried, a portable energy disruptor. "What do you want?" he demanded. The masked figure laughed softly. "What do I want? The same thing as you, perhaps, to uncover the truth. But unlike you, I know how to wield it." Before they could react, the figure activated a device that released a pulse of energy, disabling their terminals and causing the encrypted files to vanish from their screens. The library's emergency systems initiated a countdown to reopen the doors, but the figure was already retreating, leaving behind a lingering sense of dread. As the doors finally opened, Lyra and Ethan rushed out, their minds racing. They realized the true scope of the threat was far greater than they had imagined. The dimensional nexus was not just a technological breakthrough. It was a key to controlling the very fabric of the universe. They needed to warn the Academy and uncover more about the Valkyrie's plans. However, as they made their way through the corridors, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that there was something personal in the masked figure's words. The mention of your kind hinted at a deeper connection that she couldn't quite grasp. "I don't understand," Lyra said, her voice tinged with frustration. "Why would they want to hide the Nexus from us?" Ethan shook his head, his expression grim. "I don't know, but it's clear that the stakes are higher than we thought. We need to be cautious and find out everything we can before it's too late." Their bond had deepened through the shared danger, and their trust in each other had solidified. The mystery of the Nexus and the threat of the Valkyrie loomed large, but Lyra and Ethan were determined to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the Academy, they were unaware that the masked figure was not just a threat, but a key player in a much larger game, a game that could alter the fate of the galaxy. The Hidden Alliance. The days following the library incident were fraught with tension and uncertainty. The Galactic Academy had tightened its security measures, and students were on edge. Lyra and Ethan were no exception. Their discovery of the dimensional nexus and the encounter with the masked figure had left them with more questions than answers. The Academy's administration was still piecing together the details of the Valkyrie breach, but their efforts seemed focused on damage control rather than uncovering the full scope of the threat. Lyra and Ethan, however, could not shake the feeling that something crucial was being hidden from them. Determined to get answers, they decided to delve deeper into the Academy's archives, hoping to uncover more about the dimensional nexus and its significance. They snuck into the restricted section of the archives late one night, using a security override code that Ethan had acquired during their previous investigations. The archives were a vast, dimly lit space filled with rows of datapods and ancient scrolls. As they navigated through the labyrinthine shelves, they came across a section dedicated to forgotten technologies and classified research. The atmosphere was thick with the weight of secrecy and hidden knowledge. Lyra pulled out a datapod labeled Dimensional Nexus Research, her heart racing with anticipation. "This could be it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan nodded, his expression focused. They plugged the data pod into a nearby terminal and waited as it powered up. The screen flickered to life, displaying a series of documents and blueprints related to the Nexus. As they scrolled through the files, they found detailed information about the Nexus's capabilities. It was designed to manipulate space-time, potentially allowing for instantaneous travel across the galaxy or even creating alternate realities. But what caught their attention was a hidden file marked Restricted Access, Alliance Intelligence. The file contained encrypted messages and references to an underground alliance working to protect or exploit the Nexus technology. The messages were coded in a way that suggested high-level security clearance. This alliance, Ethan said, it could be connected to the Valkyrie. If they're after the Nexus, they might be working with others who have similar goals. Liara's eyes narrowed. We need to find out more about this alliance. It might be our only lead to understanding who's truly behind the threat. As they continued to investigate, a new alarm sounded throughout the academy. The intercom crackled with an urgent message. All students and staff report to the Central Plaza immediately. Security breach in Sector 5. Liara and Ethan exchanged worried glances. They had just been in Sector 5 earlier, and they knew it was the location of the Academy's primary research labs. Without hesitation, they rushed to the Central Plaza, joining the crowd of anxious students and faculty. The Central Plaza was a bustling hub of activity, with security personnel scrambling to control the situation. Liara and Ethan pushed through the crowd and headed towards the research labs. When they arrived, they saw that the labs were under heavy guard, and the entrance had been sealed. "What's going on?" Liara asked one of the security officers. "The Valkyrie are trying to breach the lab's secure containment vault," the officer replied, his face grim. "We're doing everything we can to stop them, but they've managed to bypass several security systems." Ethan and Liara's concern grew. If the Valkyrie were trying to access the containment vault, they might be after the very research they had been studying. The stakes were higher than ever. Determined to prevent any further breaches, Liara and Ethan decided to infiltrate the labs from another access point. They used their combined skills to bypass additional security measures and enter the lab. Inside, they found a chaotic scene. Security forces were engaged in a fierce struggle with the Valkyrie, who were attempting to break into the vault. Liara and Ethan worked quickly, using their knowledge of the lab's systems to assist the security personnel. Ethan disabled the Valkyrie's infiltration devices, while Liara managed to lock down the vault's security protocols. Just as they were about to secure the vault, the masked figure from the library appeared once more. This time, there was no mistaking the familiar metallic mask and imposing presence. The figure was leading a group of Valkyrie operatives, and their goal was clear: to seize control of the Nexus technology. "You're persistent," the masked figure said, their voice distorted but tinged with frustration. "But you're too late. The Nexus will be ours." Liara and Ethan faced off against the masked figure, their determination unwavering. A fierce battle ensued, with Liara using her advanced agility and Ethan deploying his energy disruptor to fend off the Valkyrie. The masked figure was formidable, but their tactics were chaotic and driven by desperation. In the midst of the conflict, Ethan noticed a hidden control panel near the vault. He quickly realized that it was a failsafe mechanism designed to destroy the Nexus technology if it was compromised. Without hesitation, he activated the failsafe, setting a countdown that would destroy the Nexus and prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. As the countdown began, the masked figure's anger reached a boiling point. "You fools! You'll destroy everything." Liara and Ethan fought back with renewed vigor, determined to protect the technology and ensure it didn't fall into the wrong hands. After a tense struggle, they managed to drive the Valkyrie out of the lab and secure the area. The countdown reached its final seconds, and the failsafe triggered a powerful energy discharge that destroyed the Nexus technology, leaving behind a burst of light and a wave of relief. As the dust settled, Liara and Ethan stood together, their faces reflecting the exhaustion and satisfaction of their victory. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but they knew that the true extent of the conspiracy was far from over. "We did it," Ethan said, his voice filled with relief. Liara nodded, her expression resolute. "But this isn't over. We need to find out who else is involved and what their ultimate plans are." With the Nexus technology destroyed and the Valkyrie's immediate threat thwarted, Liara and Ethan prepared for the next phase of their investigation. They were no longer just students caught in a web of danger. They were active participants in a galactic conspiracy, and their quest for truth had only just begun. Revelation and resolution. With the dimensional nexus destroyed and the immediate threat of the Valkyrie neutralized, Liara and Ethan faced a critical juncture. They had won a significant battle, but the larger war against the shadowy forces manipulating events from behind the scenes was far from over. Their quest for truth had only just begun. The days following the destruction of the Nexus were marked by intense scrutiny and rebuilding efforts. The Academy conducted a thorough investigation into the breach and the mysterious masked figure, but many details remained classified. Liara and Ethan, despite their heroics, found themselves sidelined as the Academy's administration took control of the narrative. However, Liara and Ethan were not about to let their discoveries be buried. They continued their investigation in secret, determined to uncover the full extent of the conspiracy they had uncovered. One evening, as they pored over the encrypted files they had recovered from the Academy's archives, Liara's holopad beeped with an incoming message. It was a secure communication from an unknown source, accompanied by a single line of text. "Meet me at the old observatory. I have answers." Intrigued and apprehensive, Liara and Ethan decided to follow the lead. They made their way to the old observatory, a once abandoned facility located on the outskirts of the Academy's grounds. The observatory was a relic from an earlier era, its once majestic dome now covered in dust and debris. Inside, they found a dimly lit control room, and in the center stood the masked figure from before. This time, the mask was removed, revealing a face that was both familiar and unexpected. The figure was Dr. Kale, a respected scientist who had been presumed missing for years. "Dr. Kale?" Liara exclaimed, her voice tinged with disbelief. "You're the one behind all this." Dr. Kale nodded, his expression weary but resolute. "I'm afraid so. The Valkyrie are just pawns in a much larger game. I was once part of an alliance working to protect the Nexus technology, but we were betrayed." Ethan stepped forward, his eyes narrowed. "Why? What's the purpose of the Nexus? And why were the Valkyrie involved?" Dr. Kale sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. The Nexus was never meant to be a weapon. It was designed to explore and harness the potential of alternate dimensions, to solve energy crises and prevent galactic disasters. But its power made it a target. The Alliance was formed to keep it safe, but we were infiltrated and betrayed by those who saw the Nexus as a means to control the galaxy. Liara's mind raced as she processed the information. So the Valkyrie were hired to steal the technology. Not quite, Dr. Kale explained. The Valkyrie were manipulated into believing that the Nexus was a threat to their cause. They were used to create chaos and distract from the true objective. Ethan's face darkened with realization. And what is the true objective? Dr. Kale hesitated before answering. There is a faction within the Galactic Council that seeks to control the Nexus's power to consolidate their own dominance. They believe that by harnessing its capabilities, they can reshape the galaxy according to their vision. They are willing to sacrifice everything to achieve this. Liara and Ethan exchanged a determined look. They now understood the gravity of the situation and the stakes involved. The conspiracy extended far beyond the Academy and threatened the entire galaxy. "We need to expose this," Liara said firmly. "The galaxy needs to know the truth." Dr. Kale nodded. I can provide you with the evidence you need. The Alliance's records, hidden data, and testimonies from those who have been involved. But you must be careful. The faction within the Council has eyes everywhere. As Dr. Kale handed over the encrypted data, he also provided them with a list of allies, scientists, diplomats, and other influential figures who could support their cause. With this newfound knowledge and support, Liara and Ethan prepared to take their fight to the Galactic Council. Their journey was fraught with danger, but their determination was unwavering. They presented the evidence to key members of the Council, revealing the conspiracy and the faction's nefarious plans. The revelation sparked a major political upheaval, leading to a reform of the Council's structure and a renewed focus on transparency and justice. In the aftermath, the galaxy was abuzz with the truth about the Nexus and the conspiracy. Lyra and Ethan's bravery and perseverance were recognized, and they became symbols of integrity and courage in the face of corruption. As they stood together on the balcony of the newly restored observatory, overlooking the vast expanse of space, Liara and Ethan reflected on their journey. Their bond had deepened through the trials they had faced, and their partnership had grown into a profound friendship. The galaxy is changing, Liara said, her voice filled with hope. And we've played a part in making it better. Ethan smiled, his gaze fixed on the stars. We have. And whatever comes next, we'll face it together. With the conspiracy exposed and the future looking brighter, Liara and Ethan knew that their adventure was far from over. The galaxy was vast and full of mysteries, and they were ready to explore them side by side. End of story. Blast off with us and stay tuned for more HFY awesomeness. Subi is IB.